years to 150 staff. And what that meant was I put systems in place that I could step out. Succession plan, the processes, the policies were about creating a business that would endure, that I could eventually step out of. There's nothing worse than being the business. You are the business. You can't step out of that business. So that's one story. You can check the website there. You can see about that. So that was an interesting business, and it's regional. It's in 15 countries now, 1,600 staff. But that was the business that I started at the end of 2014 in District 1, and grew that and sold that. What I have now, just recently launched another business, similar sector, called Alitium. That is the business that has a law firm license, and it's about transaction support, foreign investors. Again, there's a particular scale that I know that the market needs. I know that market, and my job is to train the teams and make sure the processes and the people are relevant to what we are selling. The business of Alitium is really trying to bridge that gap between foreign and local. It's not trying to be everything to everyone, but it is that bridge that gap. So this is a business. We have about 7 staff, 8 staff. I will grow that next year to about 35 staff is the plan, which is quite aggressive for a services business, but it's based on policy, systems, processes, training, and the people. It's those people that do this, not me. I lead them. I don't do it. Back to the previous role, 150 staff. I led it. I didn't do the work. Really important. So they're just some backgrounds, and I'm going to touch the leadership now, but that's just some of my background to what I do and what I have done. So leadership as an entrepreneur. I'm just going to start before I go to my 3 core elements. One of the things that I do for staff when they commence, Vietnamese staff, when they walk in the door, first day of work, I say, welcome. This is proudly a Vietnamese business, but you're not in Vietnam. And I tell them that you are sitting in this room. You could be anywhere in the world. Imagine you're sitting in Melbourne or London or New York or Singapore, whoever. That's where you are now. Doesn't matter that you're in Vietnam. So we're proudly in Vietnam, but you're not in Vietnam. And why I say that is it allows people to remove some of those customs and cultural constraints as individuals. I tell them one of the Vietnamese constraints, and this happens every culture, but one of the Vietnamese constraints is don't question your father, don't question older males, don't question your boss. And one of the things that I want as a leader is I want people to have a voice. I want them to use their knowledge. I want them to be able to express what they know and to give ideas. I'm not perfect. I don't know everything. I want people around me who are both confident and knowledgeable. At every level, there's a level of knowledge. So you've got to create the environment. You've got to create the environment that encourages people to speak. You don't know their skill set if they don't say anything. You don't know what they can do. So first of all, creating an environment where people feel they have a voice and feel they're encouraged and feel they're empowered. Really important in that. So that is trying to address some of the cultural sides, and so they're not barriers to success. Great leaders have a voice. If you don't have a voice, you're not a great leader. So that's part of the encouragement. And that leads into this first point here, one of the 3 core things that I put down. You lead by inspiration. You're not leading because of authority. It's a very short-term prospect. So I'm your boss, I have authority. That will get you respect maybe for a while, but if you don't inspire people, particularly in an entrepreneurial workplace, if you're not inspirational, if you're not taking people on a journey, if you're not showing them that what you're trying to do and lead them and they want to be around you, they won't stay around. So authority is not the way to lead people and help people grow. It won't lead to success. It may maintain what you have, but entrepreneurs, you want people inspired. And very different for someone who is simply a process authoritarian person versus someone who's an inspirational thinker, wants people to create, wants people to step out of their comfort zones and know why they're doing it. So inspiration is a critical part to that. Look on this next one. So the self-awareness part, as a leader, being self-aware. Now, it comes in the inspirational, but the self-awareness. You need to be aware of people around you, what you're doing, and the people around you. This self-awareness, your EQ about your impact, what your staff are doing, what your staff are going through, where you sit. You must be authentic in your discussions. You must know the impact of what you're doing in the workplace, people. And it's also, you've got to be aware of what is impacting your staff. If they're having issues in the workplace, if their leaders are not doing the right thing, and if they are struggling at their job, that self-awareness of who you are, what messages you're giving across is really, really important. We find very often that people come sort of leaders that aren't successful, sort of aren't those you want to be around, are very much robotic. They're doing things because that's the process. You have to stop being robotic. You must be human driven. And so this whole idea of inspirational and self-aware are elements that feed into each other and help create. The last one on this list is communication. Again, back to authenticity. Your communication must be authentic, but it must be concise. It must be relevant. And it must be people want to listen to you and hear you and follow instructions and follow your dreams and understand. You ever seen any sort of the Shark Tank things, whatever, that 30-second or 1-minute pitch? It needs to be concise. You're selling a dream. You're selling a vision. You're selling an instruction. You want people to understand what it is so they can go off and create and deliver or change or fix. If your communication is not strong, or if you ramble, or if meetings for the sake of meetings, or you can't enunciate and explain what it is, you'll lose that. People will just become sort of just detached and detuned about things. So and these are not what's normally in the textbook. You can break these down in many ways, but the entrepreneurial side, it's really important that we, the inspiration, not authority, that you're getting people that you want to work with, bosses that you want to be turning up to work and learning from is really important. The authority does not gain respect. Inspiration does. The self-awareness of what you are doing as a leader and what is happening to your people around you and removing that robotic nature is critical. And communicating that, making sure that people understand your vision and clearly and what you need to be done. Because I want from this, I want a business like I've had before where I've grown at 150 people. It's automatic. It becomes automatic. People want to run the business for you. They live the dream. One of my biggest successes at a client was one of my staff who'd been started, I think she was staff number 5, is now a partner on the board running that business and part of the global leadership team. And that's important, that developing people who can see what you've done and understand it. She lives and breathes it. Passed it across. So, leadership. One of the things, it's about mentors. Everyone needs mentors. People you're learning off. So I've put 3 things down about leadership from an entrepreneurial perspective. But to be a leader, you need mentors. And that's not physical mentors necessarily around you. It may be. It may be your lecturers, maybe your professor. It may be people that you read and follow on TV. You follow their life story. People that guide your thinking. People that you want to follow. Not every person you come across that you think, oh, I want to be like them. All the elements of their life or business decisions are correct. But what you do is you pick out the people that you respect around you. Oh, I want to follow this. I want to follow this. I want to follow this. Create who and your people around you and the people that you are listening to that mean something. One of the first people I worked with in Vietnam said to me, when you're dealing with foreign investors, you're coming into country, here are your standards. Never lower them. Never let your clients lower them. Bring everyone to your standards. I still follow that individual today, and it's very useful message is to always make sure that you've got mentors, those that inspire you to be a leader, and pulling out the parts of different qualities of individuals that you want to work with and you want to learn from. And wherever you go in your career, you'll look back and go, there's something, there's a reference point with mentors. Leadership is also lonely, particularly as an entrepreneur, but it's lonely. If you're at the top, who do you lean on? If you start your own business, who are you leaning on? So to get around that, you want people that may not be mentors, that are just people you can lean on, people you can talk to. They may not be involved in your business, but you want like-minded people around you that you can use as a resource to stop the loneliness. If something goes wrong in your business and it's yours, it's your business. What do you do? So you've got to have enough resources around you, human resources that are personal, not the business, but to help you deal with things. And they always come across, you have issues. And I mean, when COVID first hit, what do? You're making decisions. You've got to protect your team. It's on you. So you need to have resources around you that you can call upon to make sure that you can be a leader, because it is lonely and it's about you. You have people around you, good friends that are of a similar level, psychologically, emotionally, intelligence, but they don't have to be part of your business. So the mentors could be this, maybe different. And leadership is not natural for everyone. Leadership is something you can learn. It is something that you can work at, but it is not natural. And a lot of people worry that, public speaking, they're scared. They don't want to make decisions. They don't want to be in front. Natural. Butterflies in the stomach, the nervousness is normal. So what you do is, as with anything in life, you practice with the right people around you, to thinking in the right way and people to support. It can be something that most people can learn. And so you put yourself out there. You take the challenges, you take the opportunities and the risks. You know it's going to be uncomfortable. You know it's going to be difficult. Now, some people are natural leaders. Fine. Not most of you in the room here. Most people are not. So this idea of leadership in the entrepreneurial concept, have the people that you want to learn from, people you need around you to support you and protect you, and knowing that you've got to keep learning, and it's not natural that you have to keep learning. You have to keep working at it, and you're not an expert, because you can all keep learning, but it's not natural. And if you have that in the context of, well, where am I? What am I doing? You tend to find that you're, I say, not arrogant in your leadership, that you can put those other three things I put on the board in practice every day in how you relate to people. There's one other thing that's not on the board here that I like to do with people as a leader. I show how in any one day, doing any job, staff might love doing one thing, hate doing the next thing. Love doing one thing, hate doing the next thing. So they're up and down, and that's part of what we go through as individuals in a workplace. I like this, I don't like this. Engaging with the individuals to find out what it is they love and don't love, and trying to direct them and trying to understand. I want everyone to move their scale, their ups and downs, up just a little bit. Because if you draw that on a graph, you end up finding that most of it's above the line. You've only got a little bit that's below the line. Just move it a little bit. I want to find what inspires people, what makes people enjoy what they do, and find out what they don't enjoy. Sometimes the job is the job, but if we can change that a little bit towards what people enjoy, you get better staff. And they respect you more because of that, because you care. Part of that authenticity, part of the communication, part of trying to make sure that you've got the right people. So understanding in the workplace, little things like that can have a significant increase in their satisfaction and the productivity without doing anything else. And it just might be more of this, less of this. My last message on the board here is, as an entrepreneur and as a leader, what are you selling? Can you explain it? We are all selling something. You are selling yourselves in anything you do professionally. You are selling your role as an employee. You're selling your role working somewhere. You're selling yourself as a leader. You're selling a product. You're selling a process. You're selling a reason to exist. You can always be selling something. What is your USP when you're selling? What is your unique selling point? My business, foreign investors, compliance, doing things properly in Vietnam in a foreign context. I know my USP for my business. For you, what is your USP? As a leader, what is that USP? And being able to explain that. Because if you can't tell someone, if you can't sell your benefit as an individual, you can't sell as a leader what you're all about, people are going to struggle to follow, because are you genuine? Are you authentic if people can't understand what it is? That a true leader can explain the USP very quickly, very concisely, because you'll go, great, I want to work with you. Look at my boss. Everything you do, you're selling something. So I think that's the formal part of my presentation. If you want to follow me, there's my LinkedIn. If you want to tag me there, it's probably the easiest way. That's the formal part. And within that, there's lots of segues there that you can ask lots of questions, and we can explore some of that further and some of the lessons and things that coming out relevant to your classes and what you want to learn from that. And I'm going to pass across. Who's going? Tony Yang?
Okay, students, in this next part, we'll have a Q&A session where we'll be taking live questions from you guys. The question could be related to anything personal, for your own personal goals, your career goals, or the assignment, or anything you'd like at all. We have collected some questions on Canvas, so we'll begin asking a couple questions while you guys collect your thoughts. And Dr. Quinn will go around to hand the mic, so please raise your hand when you're ready to ask your question.
Thank you, Matthew, for sharing your very interesting leadership journey. I have a question here from the student for you. As a company working in the accounting service industry, how can you as a leader help the team to innovate the service without being afraid of making mistakes?
One thing I say is the fear of making mistakes is the wrong way to look at it. Mistakes is learning. So I don't want anyone to have a fear. If they fear to make mistakes, they actually won't go out of the way. They won't do their job, and people don't grow. So I actually work the other way. I'm going to answer that with a quick analogy. I was working as chairman of a mixed business, including manufacturing. I was sitting in District 12 in a factory, and the reason I was there is that the leader had a big team, but everything went through him. Everything. So the manufacturing decisions, and I sat and watched. He was micromanaging. And I said, why do you get involved in every single thing people do? And why do you change and do everything? Oh, what if they've got it wrong? They've got to do it my way. The answer was, hey, it's not wrong. It's just different. Let people make mistakes. Let them learn, and then train them once they've made a mistake. That way, instead of having 20 people reporting to him that didn't want to make a decision, he now have 20 decision makers that he was reviewing and leading and helping review what they did. And that just increases productivity multiple times. And that change in mindset. So back to the point about accounting is that innovation absolutely is the key to success for growth as an entrepreneurial business. So what you want is you want to give people the license to come up with ideas, to actually write policies, to research and innovate and give change. The door is always open. And in fact, you have to hold people up who have great ideas. It's their ideas, not your idea. You want to hold them out and you want people to go, I want to be like that person, or I want to spend more time like that. You actually encourage by demonstrating the benefit and hold people out who do great things. But the environment must be rewarding for those people who innovate and go through. Making mistakes is part of what we do. And as a leader, I've got to make sure we train people so they're not making mistakes per se. But if people won't take risks, you will not innovate and you will not grow. So you're not criticizing mistakes. You're actually leading change through innovation and encouraging people. The last thing I'll say is that one of the things I do as a leader, if I've got a reporting board or something I'm reporting to, if there's a mistake that happens and I'm sitting in there, it's my mistake. It's not, I don't pass that down and say, oh, my team screwed up. I made that mistake. I'll protect my team. I'll go back and say, hey, we've got to go back and work through that. But I'll take responsibility. I'm not passing that to someone else, because if I pass everything as never my fault, it's someone else's fault, again, they will not respect, because it's blaming. You want to move that up so that you're encouraging and supporting, you're backing your people. So there's a few different ways to look at that.
Thank you very much. Yep. In your presentation, you have talked a lot about leadership and entrepreneurship. And Tony and I are conducting a research on entrepreneurial leadership in the context of Vietnam. And we know that opportunity recognition is an important aspect of entrepreneurial leadership. So could you please explain to our student, how do you encourage your employees to recognize opportunities at work? Yeah.
So I think the way to answer that and to think about that is that we have a vision, and it's explaining the vision. And within that's very broad. We know what we want. And we also know opportunities that we want to move towards in the future. So this is the vision. This is what we're doing. This is what we want to look after. We encourage people within that very broad vision to help work out the path forward, to help understand opportunities within that. What are your friends doing? What are other businesses doing? What have you seen? What have you heard? And it is very much giving the opening to them. And it's having an open discussion. I want people to believe in me, but I want people to believe that they're part of the process. They're not an employee, they're part of the team. And with that, they hear and learn of what you're thinking of, and they see where they can fit in, because everyone has a different view and a different exposure and a different group of people that they hang around with. And the funny thing is, so many of the ideas that I put in place for the business that I sold were from people who saw their place and had an opportunity to speak and put something in place, from a software, a system, a process, a business function that we're not doing. All of that comes from people, not from the leader. The leader just encourages and creates the framework that people have a voice, understand, and can share.
Thank you, Matthew. Right now, we'd like to take questions from you guys. Does anyone have a question? Dr. Quinn?
Can you explain more why leadership in entrepreneur is sometimes lonely? Because there's part that you say is inspirational and it's help order to gain self-awareness, and it's focus on communication. However, you conclude that with it's sometimes lonely. So I'm really confused why it has so many like social activities and they're so interactive in leadership. However, you say it lonely. How come?
Yeah, and a very good question. When I say leadership is lonely, you've got a business. something goes wrong, it's up to you. Everyone looks up to you. It rests on your shoulder. When it's lonely is up to you. Who do you call upon? Who do you lean upon? It's your business. You're the founder. Everyone's looking to you. And being lonely is that you're not relying upon someone else above that. You're not leaning on the other people. So part of that is the mentors, what would they do? And the people around you to support you, your support network of people who understand you in a position, but they're not necessarily part of your business. You've got to make the decisions. And you've got to live with those decisions. And quite often in your business, it's confidential information. You're not going to go wide and seek other advice. So having people that you can confide in makes it less lonely, but it's about you. Now, often in business, there might be 2 or 3 entrepreneurs and 2 or 3 leaders. Yep, not as lonely, but it's still you guys. And it's not, until you reach the top, until you're at the top of your organization and it all falls on your shoulder, it's a strange concept because there's always someone else to bounce an idea and ask questions and seek authority and seek instructions. And it's being that top. So it's the most exciting thing. It's the most rewarding thing. It's also very lonely because it's about you. When there's a crisis, it's your crisis. It's not someone else's crisis. It's yours. And you must make judgments sometimes. You've got to make a judgment and back yourself. And you can't bounce it off people quite often. You just have to make those. So it's lonely in the decision making and the authority that you have being in the top, but it's exciting because you get to make decisions and people are looking forward to working with you. So that some people don't deal well because it is lonely. They want collectives. So entrepreneurism is a particular something that is not for everyone because of those risks and those sort of challenges that exist.
As a leader, how do you handle self-doubt when making significant decisions? And can you share a personal experience and explain the strategy you use to overcome the self-doubt?
I think you've got to, everyone has self-doubt to the point where you're developing and you're growing. I actually say I don't think self-doubt is a driver. As an entrepreneur, is really a driver because if you have too much self-doubt, you actually won't go ahead. You won't take risks. So one of the things I look back and one of the examples sort of to partly answer your question is I look back when I started that first business domicile, a climb, and I look back starting my current business. There were so many things I didn't know and so many things I had never done before. And if I sat there and looked at self-doubt, I haven't done this. It's very hard. Vietnam doesn't have regulations. We're pushing the envelope. Maybe we shouldn't. Maybe I wouldn't have achieved. But I know now I can do so much more because I've learnt. So I see self-doubt is not, I don't see self-doubt as a driver. I think is everything's a learning opportunity. And it is an opportunity of saying, okay, here's something I don't know. Let's give it a go. Let's learn. And I do that by looking back at the 2 different businesses in the last 9-10 years, what I'm doing now versus what I did last time significantly. But if I let self-doubt drive decision-making, you wouldn't do it. You just go, well, and a lot of the advice that they give out to clients, significant amount of advice to clients, foreign investors. Oh, I want to do this. Can I do it in Vietnam? Well, the licensing requirements are X. However, there's another way to look at it, and there's a gray area in the middle. Do you want to move forward? It's not regulated, or the laws haven't caught up with it. Some of them, yes, happy to push forward, let's do it. And some of them go, oh, not sure, not ready for Vietnam. And that's you see that with clients. I have to explain that and say, where do you fit? Where's the mindset as a corporate? As an individual, I see everything as a learning opportunity and not a self-doubt. And you have to take risks. That answer? Questions?
Hello, Matthew. So I will have a question. So because I used to have in the workplace, so like, how could you differentiate between like a potential leader and a proactive staff? Because like if you can see proactive staff, like they did a lot of innovative, right? But like they may not be very good in managing people. So do you have any tip on that?
So when you're looking at a pool of staff of different levels in an organization, you're looking at those who think. It's a thinking process that you're looking at, where they think of, where they're structured in their thinking, whether they're solution driven, where they're trying to deal with the problem at hand to come up with an outcome. And it's interesting. If I was trying to think of how to explain the process there is, but look, I do try to identify at all levels who are the people who I see in the future who have a role and position. And my job, that self-awareness part you saw earlier, is understanding people's and skills. Now, to step back, when I'm interviewing, I'm not interviewing for actual technical knowledge when I'm doing it. I tend to find two interview structures. One interview might be done in Tiếng Việt, might be done in Vietnamese, might be looking at more on the technical side. I want the understand the soft and the adaptation, the logic, and I actually ask questions which are layered questions to see how people think, to see how they deal with challenges and push them out of their comfort zone. Because it's those people who can deal with that are often more likely to be leaders or trained to be leaders. And I still have the view that everyone can be a leader in their own way. So I don't necessarily, just because someone's a very good and understanding and technical and come up with a solution, that's great. We want to fast track them, but I think everyone can be. So to come back to that, leadership training is important. So one thing we do in the organization is we do leadership training. And so everyone above sort of mid-level is leadership training. But even though they may not see themselves as a leader, they get the leadership training so they can understand the different skills. But particularly, one of the things we do is a self-reflection of qualities about themselves. They can understand how others may perceive them and where they sit on a matrix. We sort of let them self-assess and keep it to themselves so they can understand as well. But we do that leadership training. So it's a combination of having the right people, that self-awareness as a leader to make sure we're aware of who the people, what they're doing, what their skills are, and acknowledging that everyone should have some leadership qualities in some way and giving them the opportunity to use those leadership, train them, and to foster their career. As I said, one of the staff members who's now partner, one of the bosses at Acclaim started, I think she'll start 5 or staff 6, is one of the decision makers, sits in the board of management, sits on the regional leadership team, and because she sat there and said, I'm going to give that a shot. I want to do that. Yeah. Okay. How do we help that journey? And that's honestly what you need to do for all staff. If you're in a workplace that doesn't provide that, it's not going to be rewarding. And that's where leaders need that self-awareness, need to inspire, but also that self-awareness to make sure they know what's going on. They don't leave people behind.
My question is, who do you think is more important, your customer or your employee?
I wouldn't choose in the choice, but hear me out because there's probably a way to answer that. But I don't want to choose. I think they're two different questions and in different context. However, I will always back my staff. So if there's a problem, and again, we're providing professional services. If there's an issue, I will back my staff and I will take the heat that it's my problem, not my staff's problem. I do not want to throw the staff under the bus because the next time I need them, they won't be there. So I can manage the client process separately to the staff process, but at no point do I have to sit there and take a choice and throw a staff under the bus for the sake of the client. So I can sit there and say, look, I'll look at that. The staff's I believe they're on the right thing. They've looked to the right way. Maybe you're not happy with the outcome. Let me come back to you and I'll work with you on the outcome and I can deal with them, but I'm not going to make a choice because as soon as you start making choices, there's a loser and you don't want to lose a client. You don't want to lose staff. And I think that's one of those areas where I think I've done quite well in my career is that I don't want to make enemies. and I want everyone to work out. Sometimes people aren't completely satisfied, but they're not angry because you've gone through and you've worked through. So that workout process is how I work it through. So I don't want to make that choice, but I will always back my staff, and I'll try to work out a solution with the client to make them satisfied. And it may be corrective actions. It may be they just disagree, and you go, that's okay. You're allowed to disagree, but making choices is not the answer.
Hi, sir. I have a question that as a listener, can you describe a time when you had to make a difficult decision?
Yep. Okay, so in a climb, I only ever fired or managed out one staff. So I hired someone very reputable background. I was going to step up my people and culture, head of people and culture. I wanted to bring someone in to take some of the pressure off me, who could live and breathe the way I think, but focused on people, training, induction, people development, skill development, etc. So I wanted a senior head of people and culture. So I hired someone with a great background. She came in, and the first thing she did was get rid of some staff, bring her staff in, so they were her staff. Fine, that's okay. But then she went around and tried to do things her way. Didn't want to actually understand the culture of the business and the leaders around. But the staff were very much, I'd grown the business attached to me. And so I was getting a lot of feedback and a lot of things they're saying, she's not telling the truth. She's saying things because you wouldn't do that. That's not the way it is. To the point where I had to make a choice, either get rid of her or I was going to lose a lot of staff because they couldn't deal with that conflict of different people and different opinions. And having someone that you've put a lot of effort, money, time, and expectations into in a senior role who just did not fit, who wasn't what they were portrayed to be. And it was my only hiring decision that I seriously regret. And having to then work her out of the organization and exclude her and explain to the team, honestly, why. The best thing about that was the trust I got from everyone else about the transparency that I made in that corrective action, the mistake, but being transparent to everyone, got more trust, I think, from the staff in that I was looking after them and the business, and I listened to them. Probably was a good part of that, but the mistake was, it was a mistake. I thought the process was right to hire, but the person was a mistake, and if I didn't fix it, would have caused major problems. So it's an interesting. So people is a tough one. So that was my biggest mistake, was hiring someone to look after people who was the wrong person for the people they were supposed to look after. Questions? Up at the back, everyone's hiding.
Working as a manager for many companies is great, right? But have you ever felt like you lost what you really believe in? And how do you keep believing in yourself, because you emphasize self-awareness while changing your leadership styles to suit different teams and generations?
I'll go back to Australia for this. So I was working at Deloitte, and one of the clients there, and I'd have different roles at Deloitte. I was doing different things, and I had a great role where I worked across departments. I was sort of the go-between for corporate tax, cross-border taxation, business services, fundraising. I was doing a range, which was really uncommon in a Big Four to do that. I had great opportunity. One of the clients I helped set up the company. I chose the name. We did fundraising. We had special tax rulings and fundraising. We'll raise money, and that was working. He said, "Come and join us. Come and join. Be the finance manager. Be the general manager. Come and join us." So I left startup business, and I left my role at a Big Four to a startup business senior role and helped create that. Now the problem was that the owner got greedy, and there was an idea we could list it on the stock exchange because we had 1,000 investors. We raised about $45 million from 1,000 investors, and we had a nice structure, but it was not right. It was going to people were going to lose money in that process, and by listing, because of the nature, everyone would actually have less money, but the main owner that I was working for would get more money, and I ethically and morally did not like that. So I was, my job was to get the stock exchange listing done. So I said, okay, I will do my job, but if you make me do this, I will leave, but I'll do my job. He was driven by money. So the deal was done, and my morals and ethics was my biggest driver. I did that, compliance listing, and I resigned. So the day one of the stock exchange listing, the company secretary, which I was, left, but that was always, it was in the prospectus that was going to happen. And I stuck to my word, and that was my moral compass, my ethics compass was my driver. And I went into another role where I was doing things using my skills in something that did challenge me in an environment that I wanted to work at. And I still look back at that journey where it was a startup, we raised money. I said really rewarding, but there has to be a point in your life where you go, is this the right role for me? Am I comfortable? And if you're not, and if you can't have that discussion, then you need to make a decision. And that's part of it. We all change careers. We all learn from that. But there needs to be a decision point. And mine was, in that case, was an ethical and moral decision. I did my job, but I explained clearly what the consequence would be, and people make decisions, so I followed that through. So that company eventually did lose money. People lost value, and what I predicted happened true. And I'm very glad with my decisions and why I did that.
Got a question here from one of our online participants. Hello, Mr. Matthew. My question is, how do you balance the use of power to influence and motivate your team while also maintaining trust and respect? I think she's trying to say, how do you use your power as the boss, as the owner, as the chairman, to get your team to do something, but also at the same time maintain trust and respect from them?
Partly that's the inspiration part of those qualities. If you inspire people, you don't have to use authority to force people to do things. They want to do it because they want to work with you. So you need to have authority because you inspire, not because you direct. That simply directing people only works so far. Now, in a factory, it's different. In a factory, you have to force people, and you have to have carrot and stick in a factory to do something. If you get ever extra output, we'll give you a bonus. If you can produce X numbers, but if you don't, you won't get something. So you have to have that carrot and stick. When you're in a professional place, you've got people who have gone through a university, they're well educated, they've got ideas. You've got to make sure that you're encouraging and you're inspiring them. But micromanaging is the worst thing. So, and this is what I help when I do my professional development with various people is micromanagement is the worst thing you can do. Not letting people encourage them, give them the opportunity to have a voice and have a role and have responsibilities. So in the organization, what I've done is I put committees, I put structures, and those committees report up, not down. So you get people to be on a committee, and then one of them reports upwards. Lets them have an idea. What we're not doing is imposing from above, pushing down, and that way you bring people up. I also have a program where we draw on boards, pyramids. Everyone has a pyramid of staff, 2 levels down. Who reports to you and who reports to them? How are they going to take your job? Can they do your job? If they can't, you haven't finished training them because you can't move up unless someone in your pyramid can move up and take your job. And so we then want to get people to train to make sure they can move up. And so that means that instead of micromanaging down, you're always bringing people up with you so you can move up. And I tell people the smartest person in the organization is someone who's trained someone to do their job because you're twice as powerful because you're a great trainer and you know everything about your job. So that's a sort of approach is that inspiration, it is not micromanaging because you can't move out of the spot, you're stuck. But that pyramid model of who is below me, and if there's someone that can't move up and take the job, someone can't take your job and someone can't take their job, you've got a major problem. So train, develop, and bring people up. Create committees, create authority that goes up, not down. And I think they're sort of those messages that I would say for how to do that. But it's not because you're the boss and you have authority. That just doesn't work. It's a concept that's just going to beat your head against the wall unless you're working in a factory.
So you have shared a lot about leadership in entrepreneurship. So can you give me a definition of your like the last goal of this journey? Like, is it you will create a business, you will give a business culture that's strong enough that is run on it all, and you need to give less input, or what is your goal?
Okay, so let me give you the sort of the 3-minute what I'm trying to achieve. So in this business, I'm not running it day to day. I've got someone who's managing partner, a lawyer who runs that, who's worked with me for a long time. I'm chairman, I'm strategy, I'm structure, I'm oversight, I'm client relations, but I'm not running that business. In the past, I'm now have trained and passed, so this person is running it so that it is not based on me sitting in a chair all the time. And with that, I'm putting a structure in place, a platform in place where I can. So if there was a team in Hanoi, I could put them in. So it comes down to software, systems, processes. I'm putting in place that this business can grow. But it's not about me. It's about the process and system. So back to the very first business, process over profits. What have I learned from that? The process and system I'm putting in place here. And to give you one step further, using digital, using cloud, using everything I can and AI, and making sure that we have a foundation so that, as an example in my business, if one of my staff have a claim that they want to charge back to a client, so maybe they did something and client reimburse, that should be entered once, no matter where they are in the world, enter once into the practice management system. Automatically, that should go to the payroll system so they can be reimbursed. It will go to the client charging. It'll go to the invoicing, and it's entered once. And it's about using process and simplicity to make sure that it's productive, but it's scalable. And it's scalable not just Vietnam. So this business, where I want to get it to using that infrastructure is that regional across Vietnam, regional, and opportunity. If we see something, we can plug it in. And it's not dependent upon, how many staff can I supervise? No, I'm not running that. Putting teams and empowering people to run business or parts of it within a structure is the important part about this. It's all of those elements you've got to think about is not just now, but future. But you also got to walk before you run. So there's a sort of trying to balance all those pieces together, inputting your business and working out what my dream is, how am I going to get there, and what's practical and what's functional.
Good afternoon. May I ask that, what's the biggest mistake you have made in your career, and how did you move forward from it?
I honestly, there's no one large mistake in my career. I think there's lots of small mistakes that you make that you learn from. And I don't think there's any one. As I said, one of the things I made the issue with the hiring. So that's probably one that I've had to deal with in a business. Personally, as far as my career goes, no. And so what I would say to that is take opportunities, take risks, take the challenge, live by your ethics and morals. And if something's not working, do something about that. And that idea of have morals and have ethics in what you do. And so that you look back and say, hey, I gave it a shot. It wasn't for me. Mistakes are made by those who are not focused on what they want to achieve again. So the reason I started with that background is I came from a background. We had no money. I worked part-time from the age 15. I used government grants to go to university, anything I could. So you actually have to challenge yourself and take risks. And I think those who don't put themselves out of their comfort zone fear risk more than anything else and fear making mistakes. And so I don't think there's any one mistake in my life, but we all make lots of mistakes to learn from and we do things. So I remember working when I was at university, working part-time in a chocolate shop, chocolate wholesaler. And I now know back and go, those accounts, bookkeeping that I was doing part-time would never have reconciled because I didn't actually know what I was doing. That's a mistake. I learned from that. And I know what I would do next time. Did it matter? Not really. It would have frustrated the owner when they went to reconcile and it wouldn't reconcile. But that's a learning exercise. Little things like that. I know now what I would do. Would I have done things differently if I was smarter? Yeah, but I was 18, 19. I was trying to earn some money. You learn from what you do. So it's not so much I've got mistakes, that a big mistake, but we all have to make mistakes as part of that. We have to push our comfort zone and do things that push us somewhat.
Okay, let me close the. Ladies and gentlemen, as we come to the close of this event, I would like to thank our distinguished guest speaker, Mr. Matthew Lowry, for sharing